Hi, welcome to this week's health tip. So we're continuing on our series of introducing you to some new products that we have. Like I said, I have a web page for parents of autistic kids because these products can be super beneficial for them, but it's also good for the general population. For example, do you think oxygen is important for your body? Well, some people pay lots of money to go in what's called a hyperbaric oxygen chamber to increase the pressure of oxygen to try to get more oxygen into their tissues, because we know your body burns oxygen to make energy. And there's a lot of people that have low energy and that kind of thing. So there's actually a very simple, it's just a water that has a high oxygen content that actually improves the oxygen in your tissues. So I'm going to show you the video about that right after this. Let's take a look at the Kaqun water from Hungary. Okay, in this segment I'm going to be talking about the importance of oxygen. So there's many parents and alternative practitioners that have found sometimes that kids on the spectrum, if they go into a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, it seems to improve their functioning. So some of these kids may have like a mitochondria problem, and mitochondria is the little thing inside our cells that produce our energy. And our cells need oxygen to kind of burn to make energy. And sometimes the oxygen might not be getting to the cells, or because their mitochondria are not working as ideally, more oxygen into the tissues may have a beneficial effect on the kids. So I don't know how much it costs, but I think a hyperbaric oxygen chamber session, maybe it's like a half hour. I don't know how long you're in there for, but it might cost like 120 or 150 bucks or something in that range. So there's a doctor in the United States who deals often with autistic kids, and he's had the ability to help a lot of them. And he was able to present to us a special type of water that comes from Hungary. That's what the characteristics of the water. What it does is it actually has the ability to increase the oxygen inside the tissues of the body. So this is the water here. I have this in the office. So a bottle like this is going to be like under $20, I think, but just having like one glass of this, they've actually done blood studies while people were taking it, and I'll show you the video just after this, and you'll see the doctor giving it to somebody, and they actually have a meter reading the tissue saturation inside the cells. It's not just what's in the blood, but it's what's inside the tissues of the person, and you'll see that slowly the oxygen levels go up inside the tissues after the person just drank this water. So just having this, it's a lot cheaper than going into a hyperbaric oxygen chamber and all you have to do is drink it and it just tastes like it's water, just water. But you're just taking this. And this might be another option to help the energy levels and the capacity for the body to detoxify and heal and improve the energy levels inside the child. So it's a pretty innocuous thing. It's just a glass of water, but it's a very special water, and I have this in the office. So if you want to consider that, maybe it's something to take, bring it to your child. Once again, all these products that I'm recommending here, I take all of them, but I don't notice anything different because I guess I'm fairly well. But if I was lacking in oxygen, or if my energy levels were really low, I might have noticed some big difference there. And a lot of people who take this water, who have challenges and have issues, they say it's like going into a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and I get that sort of same benefit, but all I have to do is drink a glass of water. So that's another thing to consider. If you want to consider that for your child, just let us know, and we have these.
Essentially increasing the partial pressure of oxygen within the tissue. All right. There is nothing special about the water as far as it looks, the way it looks, the way it tastes, texture, anything else. It's very, very plain. There's nothing exotic about it. There's nothing unique about it, the waters. But what is different is the partial pressure of oxygen that it increases within the tissue. And we're going to talk about that. That's going to be the next 20 minutes. And this is disruptive technology, guys. I've been using this now for a couple of years, a little over 2 years. This water increases the partial pressure of oxygen in tissue, not to be mistaken with oxygen saturation. We can increase oxygen in the body with various techniques. As I said, meditation can actually do it. People can do that, but oxygen, just using supplemental oxygen per nasal cannula, is the most common way of doing it. And hyperbaric oxygen therapy can also do it. Now, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is actually interesting because hyperbaric oxygen therapy does increase partial pressure of oxygen in the tissue. However, it only lasts 1 hour after the dive. So the dive is an hour. When you come out of the chamber, within about an hour, you maintain that high level of oxygen, partial pressure of oxygen in your tissue. But within about an hour, it'll start to dissipate, it'll start to drop down. And then in order to establish the same partial pressure of oxygen in your tissue, you need to do another dive. And that's considerable cost, considerable time, effort, you need to have the equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And then every time you do this, you can actually drive your partial pressure of oxygen up, but it only lasts an hour. Now, what's the difference with A2O? A2O water actually increases partial pressure of oxygen in the tissue and will last 2 hours, not 1 hour, but 2 hours. Now, what's interesting here is that when it starts to go down, you don't have to do another dive. All you do is pick up another 4 ounces of water and drink it, and boom, your partial pressure of oxygen is going to go right back. But now I'm going to prove it, because this is massive. This is so, so massive. And when I say it's massive, I mean that it is disruptive technology from the standpoint that if we can actually increase partial pressure of oxygen in the tissue, we are changing the entire basis of healthcare. Here's why. I want you to understand what this really means. I just showed you a bunch of slides. I'm talking, and you may have, some of you may have kind of gotten the implications of it, but I would venture to say probably only 2 or 3%, maybe less than 10 people who really feel the implications of what I'm talking about. So now I want you to feel it and experience it so you really, really understand. When we're dealing with the atmospheric pressure of what we're breathing, right? When we are talking about the partial pressure of oxygen in our ambient air, it ranges from about 142 millimeters of mercury to maybe up to 155, 156 millimeters of mercury. That means basically the ambient air that we're breathing has a partial pressure of oxygen between that 142 to 154. Understand this. When we measure the body, our partial pressure of oxygen is lower in our body. And the lower and lower and lower it is, the more it's correlated with biological age. So in your skin, you can measure the partial pressure of oxygen, and it's an indication that the level of tissue saturation or partial pressure of oxygen in your tissue can be correlated with biological age. Now, I'm going to show you something in a minute, a video that's going to really bring this home. The device that we're going to be seeing in a second is an older device, but it's the only device that we had at that time. And that device measures a maximum of 164.9 millimeters of mercury partial pressure. But since then, we've got a newer device that measures partial pressure and goes all the way up to like 650, I believe it is at a measure. So I'm going to play this video, and this video is basically going to show you, there may be some times when you can't hear anything, but that's because nothing was being said. It's time elapsed to speed it up. But I want you to follow what we're doing here, because this is critical. Those of you that understand this, especially if you're a healthcare provider, if you're a doctor, if you understand this, you're going to be so far here ahead of your peer groups. And if once you understand it, you will understand even greater the potential of what I'm going to be talking about in about 25 minutes, because it can truly change your clinical results in all your patients, because we can change the partial pressure of oxygen beyond what is possible. In other words, what I'm going to show you now, what I'm about to show you is that A2O water, when you drink it, you are increasing the partial pressure of oxygen in your tissue more than the partial pressure of oxygen in the air that you're breathing. In other words, in the water, we are delivering more oxygen via the water than what you can breathe through ambient air. And that's impossible. And if anybody had told me that, I would have said it's impossible. Watch, and you will see. And I've only maybe repeated this only maybe 60 or 70 times. More than half the people I did this with were doctors. So here we go. What I'm doing right now is I'm getting the baseline. That's the sensor. I'm putting in a couple of drops to create a seal of water. And now I'm sealing it in. So we're getting a baseline of the individual, seeing what that is. And you'll see that the partial pressure of oxygen is dropping. It's rapidly dropping because we're trying to get the baseline of the partial pressure of oxygen in this particular individual. This was a doctor, and we've got her now at, this is where she's leveling out. That timer at the bottom, you can see the timer right here. And I'm sorry about the shaking. It's rapid sequence, it's a time elapse. So it's showing that she's dropping. Here's the graph. And this is where we started it. And it's showing her partial pressure starting to drop. So her partial pressure was down to 59.3 and 2 minutes and 25 seconds into it. So when I put the probe on, it was measuring the partial pressure of oxygen in the air, because it's free, right? As soon as I locked it into her skin, it started dropping, boom, 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 because it's now only able to measure the partial pressure of oxygen in her tissue. So it's starting to go down, down, down. And this is where it starts to level out. So when it levels out is when I start speaking and the video slows down to normal speed. So she started flattening out at right about 58. Now I'm giving her A2O water. So she just finished drinking the water, the A2O water.
You can see the graph going up, but it's not as dramatic yet. Let's see what happens. 62. So it had gotten down to 58, and you're already up to 62 now. That was only what %?
Yeah, it's 58.7.
That's what leveled out.
All right, so you can see the time right down here, right? And it's going to be kind of hard because I'm talking in the video and I'm actually talking to you guys right now live on the webinar. But you can see this number starting to climb up. And here's the time elapsing. So we gave her the water. She finished drinking the water right around 4 minutes.
All right, so it's been a minute now, and it's gone up to 63.6, and it's still climbing.
So she actually finished drinking the water right around 4 minutes and 20 seconds. So you can see the number climbing up here, and you can actually see this line climbing. This is just a graphical interpretation. We're about to hit 65 now.
All right, this machine.
Okay, so I'm going to explain what this all means. This is a graph underneath, and this is looking at the partial pressure of oxygen right here in millimeters of mercury. And this is looking at the age, the biological age of an individual. Okay, so basically, if your partial pressure of oxygen is at, say, 70, you correlate to this graph, it's crossing the 80-year point. So you would say that you have a biological age of 80 years of age if you have a partial pressure of oxygen of 70. Remember, hers is 58. So if you extrapolate this out, this is 90. If you have the same graph going out here, she would have been about 120. That was her biological age. Now, again, this is a doctor that's going through treatment at the clinic. I'm not going to bother telling you guys what it was for. But bottom line is, this is about where it would correlate out. So 80, 90, 100, 110, about 110, 120. All right. So if a person gets up to, say, 80 millimeters of mercury, at 80 millimeters of mercury right here, you go straight down. That's about a 48-year age, biological age. So she's at 69.6, up from 58, 69.6. That's basically 70. That's the 70 millimeters of mercury. And you come out here. And so you can see that would be about the age of about 78. How many people truly understand what we're seeing, the implications of this? How many people are beyond excited at this point that you've just witnessed in about 4 minutes the increase of partial pressure of oxygen in tissue in an individual.
And at 85.4, you are the biological age of a 34-year-old. Pretty impressive, huh? All you have to do is drink some water. That's it. Pressure. And 93 puts you at a biological age of a 27-year-old.
That is a 60.3% increase.
That's huge. That's a big improvement then.
Right now. And you're going to see something even more extraordinary now. So I'm putting this in regular drinking water, and you can see this dropping down. Let's play this and see where it goes. A2O water in here. I'm going to use regular tap water here. Can you fill this up with tap water here? Tap water. Look at this number up here, how it's dropping. Ivan, can you do me a favor? Can you take that A2O water and just pour enough in that lid? So this is what we see on the right, where the probe is right now, is the actual tap water. Let's see what it does in this water.
Switching to A2O.
Switching it to A2O. And remember, there's going to be a little bit delay in the sensor when it picks it up. So now you see it kind of leveled out there. And look at that. That's a parabolic increase. You guys watching this?
Very fast.
You guys see that? You see, show the, did you show that on, did I put that in the water? No?
Yep.
Oh, you did?
It's an A2O.
Somebody could say, well, he didn't put it in water. It's got an atmospheric pressure.
164.8, 164.9.
164.9.
This is the maximum that this machine can register.
Make sure it's not-
And so we measured the water with the new device. I don't have a video of it, but the new device measured the A2O water at a partial pressure of 520 millimeters of mercury, which is absolutely crazy, but that's what it was. And we measured water that was a year old. We measured water that was freshly bottled. We measured water that was a year old, and we measured water that was 2 years old. Exact same thing. Exact same thing. Now, here's what we recently did. Dr. Lyons told me of an experiment that he recently did. He took the water and he boiled it for about 10 minutes and dropped the partial pressure of oxygen in the water after being boiled. After they boiled it and let it cool down to room temperature when they measured it, it was down to 85 millimeters of mercury. Still more than what our bodies are at baseline. Like you saw, that doctor's was 58, and I've measured people that, like Dr. Ashton's was 57. I've actually measured people that were down to 35 millimeters of mercury, which is really low. But they let the water cool down to room temperature. They measured it. It was down to 85 millimeters of mercury. Then they put it in the freezer, left it for a couple of days, and then they let it thaw out naturally. They didn't try to melt it. They just let it come out, room temperature, let it melt. They measured the partial pressure of oxygen off the melted water, and it was back to 520. And then they did it again. And it was the same thing with the same batch of water, and did it again, and did it again. They did it a total of 10 times. And every time the water would come down to a partial pressure of 58 millimeters of mercury. And then when it was frozen and then allowed to thaw out, it would go back to 520 into it. This is why I say it's disruptive technology.